In this video, we're going to talk about what rounding rules are. So with rounding rules, the government states that this structure is in which the time worked is rounded to either the nearest quarter hour or you pay true for what the employee physically works. So the government actually lays this out pretty clearly when it comes to rounding to the quarter hour. The Fair Labor Standards Act allows rounding to the nearest quarter hour, and it means always rounding down violates the Fair Labor Standards Act. And you're going to see what we're talking about here in a minute. But if you're always rounding the person's working hours down, that means you're preventing them from getting overtime and you're not paying them for the time they're actually working. So you're actually penalizing the person. So in other words, this is a dance. You can't just set it and do away with it and never look at it again. You have to constantly sample this to see if your agency is, of course, removing time from people, or if you need to give them additional, or if this is actually hurting your staff members. So the government lays this out. They say employee time worked from 1 to 7 minutes may be rounded down and not counted as hours worked. I think this is really talking about a specific time of the day, because if this is punching out, this example would be true. So if I am punching out at 5:01 or 5:07, it backs up to 5 o'clock and it's not counted as hours worked, that would be true in this case. But what if it's starting the day? So if I punch in at 8:01 or 8:07, I'm actually losing time as well, and I'm not going to be counted as working. But then at 8 to 14 minutes, the time must be rounded up and counted as a quarter hour of work time. Again, that sounds a little weird, but if I punch in at 8:08 or 8:14, it's going to be rounded up to 8:15. So it's actually not giving me as much time worked. So it's not actually counted as time worked. It really just depends. But they've literally laid out the rules for exactly what you need to follow. 1 to 7 minutes is rounded down. 8 to 14 minutes is rounded to the nearest quarter hour. So again, it goes back or forth. So that can be pretty confusing if you don't have an example. So I made sure to give you two examples. The first one in this example, if the person punches in anywhere from 9 o'clock to 9:07 and 59 seconds, it's going to be rounded down. So the employee is starting their workday and they punch in at 9:05 and 5 seconds. Well, guess what? It's within this window of 9 o'clock to 9:07 and 59 seconds. So guess what? It's going to round down to the nearest quarter hour, which would be 9 o'clock. In the second example, this person punched in at 9:08 in 1 second. So literally right after that threshold. And guess what? In this example, if they punch in anywhere between 9:08 and 9:15, it's going to round it up to the next quarter hour. So in this case, the person punched in at 9:08 in 1 second, and it rounded up to 9:15. So in this case, the person kind of lost some time. That's how this program works. Sometimes it gives them more, sometimes it gives them less. Now, this is something to keep in mind. You also can just pay true. If you're going to ask me, it's the cleanest and the most recommended. I personally will always do this one. If I'm running my own company, I'm going to pay myself true. I'm going to pay my employees true. It doesn't require you to do a sample. Yes, you can still sample to make sure you're paying people the appropriate minimum wage and overtime, but this is the cleanest and most recommended. And you're basically just paying every minute the employee works, and time is not rounded. So let's just give you an example. We're going to talk about true versus rounded. And you can see when it's true, person punches at 8:05, goes to lunch at 12:10, comes back at 1:05, and then of course punches out for the day at 5:13. So it's at 8.22 hours. When you round the punches, you get a different effect. So remember, if it's that 1 to 7 minute rule, it rounds down. So it goes from 8:05 to 8 o'clock. When the person goes to lunch, again, it's outside of that 8-minute threshold, so it goes up. So 12:15. So in this case, he's getting more time, he or she. 5 more minutes, getting an additional 5 minutes added on. At 1:05 p.m., again, it's within that 1 to 7 minute period, so it's going to round down. And then, of course, punching out for the day at 5:13, it's going to round up to 5:15 p.m. So look at this. Instead of the person getting 8.22 hours, if you paid them true, you're now getting a total of amount of 8.5. It's not always going to work like this. This is just a perfect example to give you an idea of what you could see. But again, it is a dance. When you're doing rounded punches, you must sample your employees often to make sure that you are not adversely affecting them with these rules. And if you are, you need to, of course, go back to just paying them true time.